want to start this one by recognising the Gympie people, who are the guardians and the protectors of Gympie Kundu, which is commonly known as the Gympie Pyramid. Woody, Macca and I had the privilege of meeting with some of the guardians and the protectors from the Gympie people who are fighting for the Gympie Pyramid, and it's a very worthy fight and something that needs to be preserved. And they took us to the polygonal masonry wall and also to the Gympie Pyramid itself. What a privilege and an honour it was to be taken there by those guys and shown the different things at the site and told the stories, and just to share that with those people was an amazing experience. After we left the site, and our plan was to do a podcast that night. However, we couldn't get our thoughts in order. Our minds were too blown. We needed to sleep on it, and we decided to head back there very early the next morning. The podcast you're about to hear was actually recorded on top of the Gympie Pyramid, literally on top. As we will speak about in the podcast, and afterwards, me and Woody did a quick reflection just 12 days later, our thoughts and some of the things we've looked at since then. It's not a pyramid. It's a topographical ridge that if you look at it from the bottom going up, and if you can see the terraces in place, for want of a better word, and if the walls are in place and they got shorter as they got to the top, you can see how it would be perceived as a pyramid from the front. And look, we'll stick with that term because that is the common colloquial term. However, the proper term is Gympie Kundu. This is very exciting, however also very sad. Exciting in so far as being able to be a part of this and being able to talk to the people and share their knowledge and information and experience and go to these sites and see them. It's just an amazing thing to do. However, it's sad because it's becoming quite clear to me that a lot of these sites did exist. However, they were bulldozed and destroyed on purpose. There's a larger story here, and I don't want to get into that now. However, it's just what has been done to desecrate these sites and desecrate the heritage and the understanding we have of the indigenous people of this land is something else. However, it's exciting that we can see this stuff, what's left of it now, and dig and try and understand the how, who, what, when, where, why. This is the whole reason I got into this, and this is only chapter 1 of this story. I know myself and Woody and Macca and a few other boys and girls behind the podcast are very dedicated to helping the Gympie people in their fight to save this site and then to properly honour it and study it and understand it, because that's what's important. However, this podcast, to my mind, is probably the most important podcast we've done yet, only because of the gravity of the things that we're learning, the fact that it's 3 hours or so from my doorstep, and the fact that we're beginning to understand and gain knowledge of where Australia sat in this global civilization that existed prior to 13,000 years ago, which there's evidence of symbolism and all the things we've talked about previously. I could wax lyrical about this for a long time, however I won't. I want you guys to listen to the podcast. I didn't cut it or edit it at all. There is some silence, however in that silence you can hear the trees, you can hear the birds, and really try and soak up the energy of where we were, which was powerful yet solemn, and that's an interesting choice of words. I am going to go old school again and use Waiting for the World to Change for the intro, and I think we'll stick with Bathe in the Sun on the end. As I said, I rang Woody and we did a quick reflection on some of the other things we learned since then and our thoughts that we've had since then about the experience, so I'll tack that on the end. Thank you very much for those that take the time to listen to this one. This one's very important to us. It should be very important to you as well, because on a global scale, not just those of us that live in Australia, we need to understand our spot, and we need to work in the spirit of Wurrujin, which is black fellas and white fellas working together and understanding each other. So in the spirit of Wurrujin, and thanking the Gympie people once again, and thanking Woody and Macca for coming along for the journey, Really enjoy this one, guys. Kick back, picture yourself on the top of a rocky outcrop that has probably been there and used for ceremonial purposes for tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. Look after yourselves. Stay safe. We'll talk soon. Cheers.
What you said is what you got. It's when the only information depending on the one. While we're waiting on the world to change. We keep waiting on the world to change. It's not that we don't care, we just know that the body ain't fair. We keep waiting on the world to change. Waiting on the world to change. We keep waiting on the world to change. Today our generation is gonna rule the population. We keep waiting on the world to change. We keep waiting on the world to change.
G'day, boys. How you going?
Trev, good to be here, mate. Yeah, good to be here, thanks.
So, before we get into this one, we just wanted to acknowledge the Gympie people because we are actually situated on their land right now. So we came up intentionally yesterday to explore Gympie and some of its sites. This is on the back of Australia's Stonehenge that I started diving down, and I know, Woody, we've talked about this a few times coming up here, and we just decided to make it happen. So we just want to acknowledge the people because we are currently sitting on what is understood or known colloquially as the Gympie Pyramid. Are we supposed to be here? Technically, no. However, we were here yesterday afternoon, and after much deliberation overnight, we decided to get up early in the morning and come back to have this conversation.
The technicality part of it comes down to there's a disagreement between the local Gympie people and the Transport and Main Roads of Queensland. The TMR have plans to use this site to push the new Bruce Highway through. Now, when you come to this site, there's absolutely no reason why a highway should come through this area. It's rocky, it's mountainous, it's not on the direct track. There's the widespread view that there's only one reason that they've wanting to do this, and that's to destroy this actual site here.
Yeah, and that's, some of the things we learned yesterday and some of the things we've seen up here yesterday and today, it's hard not to be conspiracy minded as to why you would want to destroy a site like this. There's no reason. It'd actually be a lot of work to push through this site.
Absolutely.
As opposed to the surrounding bush where it'd be a lot easier to push through. And I suppose we came up here looking for some answers. However, we're going to leave with more questions than answers, aren't we, mate? It's
Oh, that's definitely for sure. And those answers come in a lot of different forms, and not all those questions are easily pondered upon.
Mm-hmm.
They take some serious imagination, some what if, a lot of poetic license into it. But the fact is, at the end of the day, each one of those questions is certainly worth considering.
Absolutely. So we started yesterday at the church, didn't we? That was the first site we went to.
Yeah, the Gympie Methodist Church.
And look, I'd heard about that, and I'd seen some pictures. However, obviously what I'd seen was only just a snippet, because that wall it's hundreds of metres long, and there is thousands of stones that make up that polygonal masonry wall.
And they're meticulously made. There's small stones that we could see other examples of European masonry around the town.
Yeah.
And you can see the difference. There's nearly laziness in comparison to what's at the Methodist church wall.
Yeah. So the story goes is that the stones, well, theoretically they came from where we're sitting right now, mate.
According to the story, yeah.
And they were moved, they were numbered, and they were moved, and then the church was surrounded by those stones, and that was completed, judging by the plaque that we saw yesterday, around 1938. We have seen some photos of standing stones on top of where we're sitting right now that are now pushed over. You can see a lot of the stones have been pushed over. And that's the story as well, is that the farmer that owned the land wanted to build a house here and decided to push all the stones over and try to push them over the edge. And you can see that from where we are right now. But I suppose there's a lot of bigger questions than, as much as does this site need to be preserved and properly studied? Yes, absolutely. However, the bigger questions and the stuff we got into last night after we'd had dinner and sat down for a little while, it's like the who, what, when, where, why.
Who is definitely the big one that's running through my mind.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that the Cubby are the custodians, and there's definitely a technology used in this site that is lost to our current knowledge.
Yeah. Well, we had a bit of a scratch around this morning, and we actually found some of the wall that matches some of the rocks that are at the church. And if you look at the rock, majority of the rock that is at the church, it did come from here. It's the same stone.
Yep.
And again, these things and these sites, because of the destruction that has been, the abhorrent destruction that has been put upon these sites, to what make them disappear,
to cover up agendas.
I don't.
There's a bigger story at play here, and we're only scratching the surface.
Yeah, and look, as you say, the Cubby people have been fighting this for a long time, and there's definitely a presence about this spot.
You can feel it as you're approaching it.
Yeah. You know, and is it, you know, how do you begin to discuss some of the stuff that, because potentially what we're saying is that behind us there was a stone circle reminiscent of all the other stone circles that are found all over the planet.
But these stones they're not small stones. You know, they're not up to the 50 kilogram size that's at the Mullumbimby site.
Mm.
These are several tons of stone.
Mm.
And some of them are meticulously placed. You can see they've been shaped. It's actually mind-boggling. And it's part of the how. The question of how. Like, how does one lift up? Well, it wouldn't be just one. How does a group of supposedly, to our knowledge, primitive peoples lift up a stone column that's several metres long and erect it into the air? It's all part of the questioning. More questions and answers.
More questions and answers.
Now, for this site also, there wouldn't have been natural trees that they could use some sort of pulley or block system to raise it.
And I think that's the thing we need to think about as well, is that what we see here, it didn't used to look like this.
No.
You know, along with the indigenous people were very good custodians of the land, and they would not have if they were looking after it, they would not have let it get to where it is now. They would never have let the amount of overgrowth and brush and trees and stuff that are here now. You know, and it's easy to see, you know, the rocky ridge as it was described to us yesterday. How it is easy to see if you look up from one vantage point that it would be construed as a pyramid.
Mm.
And if those stone walls that are now at the church were from here, and it was a stepped, you know, it looked like it was stepped as it was coming up, then yes, you could see how it could be seen as a pyramid. And look, I wonder, and this is just me thinking out aloud, if the terraces and the wall, so if you take the wall and you take the fact that there's corners in that wall that are naturally there, that would have had to have been there to start with.
Yeah.
You lay that coming up this hill. Think back to a lot what we understand about a lot of this stuff, whereas it's almost like an initiation ceremony. Maybe each level you worked your way from the bottom to the top to make your way to the stone circle for whatever ceremony or initiation or whatever was actually part of that. You know what I mean? Like that I didn't think about that till just then, till I was just looking down the hill and going, maybe it's a step by step. And I think the bigger question that this has led us here is, where does Australia fit into the giant puzzle?
I think there's a lot to do with the star system, but the guys that created this site, they had a far superior knowledge than what they've been given credit for.
Yeah, absolutely. That's becoming. It was already clear to me. However, seeing what I saw yesterday and today, it's abundantly clear that we are a species with amnesia, and we've forgotten more than we'll ever know, I think. Because how you're supposed to, as you say, when you're at this stuff, you need to use a bit of imagination. You need to see, you need to have a look at what it would have been like. And the wholesale destruction of these sites, it has to be said that potentially the only real reason they're doing it is to discount the level of intelligence and the level of advancement that the people that were here had at one time or over the course of time. You know what I mean? Like, I had...
It's... We actually, before we started the podcast, we were sitting and wondering for a while actually how we were going to approach this podcast, because of the sheer magnitude and the repercussions of what could be.
Yes.
This isn't just a local thing. This, there's a reason all these sites existed. We don't know exactly what the reason was.
Yeah.
But until we can completely and utterly discount what they were, we shouldn't wantonly be destroying them. They need proper investigation and analysation, and not just people with current ideas. That they need to, be thinking outside the box. It's too perfect how all these things are lining up and measuring up.
Yeah.
To be a massive coincidence.
Yeah, yeah. And look, even the leftovers of the stone walls that are down the hill there, there's a few terraces that are left over. There's no way that that's natural.
No way.
And there's no way that you can...
Well, I've been to a lot of different rocky outcrops before, and there's nothing like the terracing that forms naturally.
No. And I suppose, and this is the discussion we had last night, is that the windows of time that we're potentially dealing with, because you need to take a second to realise that, if we had the DeLorean, you know what I mean? We had the DeLorean and we went back in time 12,000 years ago to this spot right now, what would we see? What would be here? It seems to be there's a growing picture of a global society that existed and that communicated through symbolism and potentially early writing, through early pictographs like early hieroglyphs. And this is the oldest piece of rock on the planet. Australia is the oldest piece of rock on the planet. So it has a vital part of the story to tell. However, the destruction that has happened, which now doesn't give us the opportunity to see these spaces and places as they were. Well, not as they were, because this is the thing, we'll never see them as they were.
No.
However, the remnants of what they were.
And that's, what we have to do is forgive the past sins of not knowing, and from this point onwards, make up for that with our pursuit of resurrecting that past knowledge.
Yeah, and that was the discussion we had yesterday. It's like, whilst I completely and totally understand why, the true story behind this place in some ways can't be shared. Well, I don't think "can't's" the right word. I think it should be shared. I think because there's enough people out there that want to understand the knowledge and just gain the knowledge, whatever it is, good, bad or ugly. We need to be able to share the knowledge, because how else are we supposed to understand? How else are we supposed to truly know what we're looking at?
And the other thing is, at the end of the day, after speaking to members of the Cubby tribe, it's not like they want to lock this place up so nobody can get to it. It's that they spoke strongly about white man and black man working together and embracing the culture and preserving these sites and being proud of them as Australians. it's we're on a pretty remarkable piece of rock. It's not one person's to completely own and say no, you can't come here, or eliminate someone else's right to access it if they feel a spiritual connection. It's about sharing and growth together, and that's really the only way that progress is going to be made, is if we work together.
That was one thing they were pretty adamant about as well.
Mm.
They were talking pretty heavily about that.
Yeah.
Especially people coming over from international, overseas, and putting gifts down for the land and for the ancestors and whatnot, which is pretty cool.
And we found a few things up here, some coins and bits and pieces. Like people have come here as a mark of respect to leave some offerings, and it's we have to start to see past, as you say, mate. To see past some of our past sins, our past perspectives,
Past ignorance,
and we need to see that, and need to acknowledge not only the people but also the sites, because you can only imagine the potential knowledge that could be gained from truly understanding what this site was about and what it was used for, and what knowledge is actually left, because we don't have the right idea, and there seems to be that there once upon a time there was a race of humans that seem to get along a little bit better than we do now, potentially a little bit more harmoniously with the planet, and they understood things that we don't understand, and one of those things is how to move these big bloody stones around, you know what I mean, like, and why do these symbols and everything else echo across the globe? And I think truly understanding that and looking at it from an objective point of view, that could help us move forward. I think that's
and so many people these days, everyone wants to talk about, I wish we had a utopia, lived in a perfect world. Each one of us has the capability of working towards utopia. It's not going to be given to us. We're not going to wake up one day and someone else is going to make a decision that makes it perfect. It's up to each and every person to work towards creating that utopia. That's how utopia is created. It doesn't just happen magically. Everyone's got to work towards the same goals. Eliminate the greed. Appreciate natural sites. I mean, there's nobody on this planet that's walked into the bush and walked out that's not feeling cleansed by being around the trees, around the energy, and that's there is an energy out there that's greater than anything that we can generate with coal or gas or solar.
Yeah, exactly. We don't understand.
We don't understand it. We're at the very beginning phases of understanding it, and it might take another century or millennia before we completely do, but we've got to start somewhere.
And understanding, and I think one of the things that's been echoed to me is that all these sites that did exist, they welcomed everyone. You know what I mean? It wasn't an exclusive club. No, they welcomed everyone and anyone to.
I mean, there's anecdotal evidence of international visitors.
Absolutely there is, and
it'd be arrogant to dismiss the possibility of a multi-use site.
Yeah.
And an international site.
And I think, I know this. I know it's sort of. But before we move on to the Australia First stuff that I know we wanted to unpack a little bit, just to explore that idea. I wanted to get your thoughts, Macca. I mean, you're not attached to any of this stuff. I know me and Woody are very much deep down the rabbit hole with this stuff, and you sort of come along for the ride. And welcome to the podcast, mate.
Thanks on your cherry.
Thanks for having me.
No. Thanks for being had, mate. No. So what's your thoughts, I suppose, before we move on to the next topic I know we wanted to talk about what we've seen over the last couple of days?
Yeah, so I didn't really have any prior knowledge or opinion or anything like this. I sort of found out the night before we came down that this is what we're looking at.
Yep.
I didn't have any knowledge of the Gympie Pyramid. I had nothing. When we got here, we talked to the Cubby people, and their passion for what they were talking about was awesome. And the way they were talking about it, and it sort of makes you think twice about how I felt, like, because I had no opinion.
Yeah.
It could have been ignorance.
Yep.
But
Well, if you didn't know, you didn't know.
well, that's it.
Yeah.
But just had no clue. And to come up here and you definitely do feel it, a little bit of energy and that, it's definitely it's a good spot, It's there's things that we saw were weathering, you can tell they're not weathering, you'd have to be pretty daft to assume it's weathering.
Yeah, some of the stones we saw and some of that other stuff, some of the grinding spots and the...
Yeah, that's it. And that's sort of all I've gotten from it, to be honest. But
That's fine, mate. That's fine. What about the... you said something about the wall yesterday. You would have walked past it and not really...
Yeah, if I was in town, I was going to the bakery, get a pie, mate, I wouldn't even notice that wall. It wasn't until we were with the Carby people and they sort of pointed out, the craftsmanship that was involved is outstanding. It's amazing. Yeah. And like you guys were saying before with the European, as we were driving around, we're looking at like the other walls, and it sort of just looked like someone just... I'm not saying it was bad, but it just looked like someone's thrown it together. Yeah.
It looks lazy in comparison.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's pretty cool to see when someone points those sort of things out. Even coming up here, to be honest, if I had just walked up here, probably wouldn't even noticed either. It's not until someone really points things out that you start to notice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose that's just some of the things, mate. They're hidden in plain sight, and you can't discount anything. However, you still got to be objective in the way that you look at it. You know?
And that's part of the, Josh is a good mate of mine, and it's also part of the reason why I wanted him to come along, because traditionally Josh hasn't been into the whole megalithic. He's new to this scene. I've invited him into the fold, and it's nice to get a pure perspective, someone that hasn't had outside influence onto the thoughts.
Yeah, well, we are influenced. We're very clouded in some ways because we want to see.
Well, we're clouded in the fact that we've got so much information that we've collected that it's hard to know. It's definitely not clear. There's no clear-cut pattern. We've got so much, between you and I, the thoughts that are going through our minds about all the possibilities. I mean, we were sitting there last night, just mind blown. And you cannot discount any theory until it's proven otherwise. Yeah,
and I think that the issue we have now is we don't have the exact knowledge. So, we, at this point in time, we're not totally tying ourselves to any idea, and we try not to do that anyway. That's one of the core parts of doing this is we can't tie ourselves to any idea. We need to be open to every possibility, whilst being able to analyse the evidence and see the best, what makes most sense to us, I suppose. Because that's the other thing too, is it's all in the eye of the beholder. That's the other thing. It's hard to see where what we see is not what someone else sees.
Yeah, I could imagine if you went around town, there'd be, a dozen different stories of everything around you.
Yeah, there was that lady that come and talked to us.
Exactly right.
When we were looking at that wall.
Yeah.
And she's like, there was an open mine shaft here, and they moved the wall, and I saw them do it. And it's like, well, it was done in the 20s, so you're looking pretty good for a 100-year-old. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what I mean. I reckon if you went around town and you asked everyone about their thoughts and opinions, and there'd be so many different stories about what they've heard or all those sorts of things, So.
And you need to be open to whatever possibility.
To what they say. Yeah.
Yeah,
definitely.
you need to take it all in, you know, because, you know, if one thing I've learned doing this and looking at all the information is that nothing is black or white. The answers are in the shades of grey.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
know what I mean? If it says one says one thing, one says another, you know, potentially the answer is probably somewhere in the middle, or, you know, towards one side or the other. But I know one of the things we did want to touch on is, you know, and something that we've spoken a little bit about was the Australia First theory. So, and we're probably going to butcher it, so we need to be open and honest about that. However, the Australia First theory is that maybe we didn't originate out of Africa. Maybe we originated out of Australia. Because this is the oldest piece of rock on the planet. And maybe there were multiple types of indigenous people that existed here in Australia. And the thing is that in some of the stories you hear from Egypt and all that sort of stuff is that they professed that they got their knowledge from the south, from a great people in the south. We're about as south as you can get, unless you're going to Antarctica.
It gets pretty bloody cold down there.
Yeah. So, and I'm new to this Australia First stuff. This is something that is only very fresh, so I don't have... I've looked at a little bit of stuff, but I don't have concrete evidence. However, as a theory, as a looking around and understanding how old this land is and how long the people have been here, and I don't see why not.
There's no reason why not.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, if you rely solely on something as old as, you know, that there's sites in Australia that have been dated at 142,000 years.
Yeah.
You look at you try and compare Australia to, say, Northern Africa. Northern Africa is quite dry. Things get preserved a lot easier in Africa than what they do in the more temperate parts. You know, we're quite tropical here in comparison. We get a lot more rainfall. We get, you know, there's a lot of geological activity with, you know, being associated with the Pacific Rim. So the Earth shifts and changes.
Yeah, and has done for a lot. You know, and that's, you try and grasp 142,000 years. That's a fucking long time.
In our knowledge, but in the history of the world, it's a flash in the pan.
It's a flash in the pan. However, what I'm getting at as far as that's concerned is like, where would, over the course of 140,000 years, there's not going to be a lot of evidence. If there was,
that's right. It's hard. It's hard to prove things when you've got that many. You got moisture. You got geological factors.
Yeah.
You got just pure time. How much things change over time.
Yeah.
Oceans rising, oceans falling.
Yeah.
You know, inland seas receding.
Well, I think I mentioned it the other day. However, Randall Carlson put out a thing. It's like, I think there was in 150,000 years, the last 150,000 years, there's been 25 semi-extinction level events that would have wiped the slate clean in a lot of ways.
Pretty much, yeah. Most, yeah.
You know, and it's the ongoing and continued survivors of these cataclysms that continue on. However, each time that this happens, obviously the big major one happening, you know, there was one major one like 70,000 years ago, where the human race, as they understand it, was down to like 5,000-10,000 people worldwide. That's it. You know what I mean? Like that, we were scratching. You know, what happened prior to that? And then, you know, let's say we built the society back up to a level prior to 12,800 years ago, before the last great cataclysm. what would have that wiped out? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And Australia would not have been immune to. And some of these cataclysms are actually focused around Australia. Like apparently there's evidence of a tidal wave that brushed up against the Great Dividing Range somewhere in the last 2,000 or 3,000 years. Because a meteor hit between us and New Zealand, and the resulting tidal wave. And if that had brushed up against the range, like anything that was on the other side of the range, is now gone.
Yep.
It's gone into the sea. Like it doesn't exist anymore. So you need to. It's hard with these things. Like you'd love a time machine to be able to see what this place would have looked like and other places would have looked like back in that time. However, we just need if there is knowledge out there that can be shared, it does need to be shared, because that's the only way we gain understanding, and that's true understanding of the land we're a part of. You know what I mean? Like, I know we all consider ourselves Australian. That's who we are. Like, we understand our heritage. However, we all love being in the bush. We all feel better when we're in the bush. We've all spent so many hours wandering through and appreciating, and we always look after the bush when we're in it. And we need to have a greater understanding of what was before us. And it's disgusting, and it's a tragedy and a travesty, and there's there's not enough superlatives around to describe how badly some of our ancestors unfortunately treated the Indigenous people when they came here. If they had had a more open understanding, then maybe we'd have more of these sites, and we'd have more knowledge. But I think the windows of time, I mean, boys, you got to try and grasp the fact that we're potentially sitting on a site that's 10, 11, 12, 15, 20,000.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Years old.
Yep.
And
that's all part of the excitement of it is, I really feel that we're at chapter 1 of our, realm of understanding.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things are changing.
Yes, they are.
It's really not going to get too much better than what we've got now. Like, historically, we're at the most peaceful now that we've ever been.
Yeah.
Worldwide, but we still feel so insecure and unstable. And how many factors contribute to that? Most of it centers around consumerism, capitalism, greed. If you take all those factors away, and if you walked away from everything and come into the bush, things are quite stable.
That's true. Yeah.
So everything all the instability to me is a figment of our imagination and our own creation.
That's true. However, at the same time, I think it's pretty safe to say that the Western experiment, it's not a failure, as you say. In a lot of ways, it is the most peaceful time to be alive. However, the consumeristic, capitalistic, supposedly democratic system that we now exist under, it doesn't feed our souls. That's the problem, right? I think this is we're chasing, which there's those of us that understand we're a species with amnesia, and we look around and go, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Surely there's more to this than the next iPhone. You know what I mean? And it's that deeper understanding and that deeper knowledge of not only self, however, people and the planet, that I think a lot of us are chasing and trying to understand. And I don't know, but I mean, from my perspective, I've never really cared about blue, black, green, yellow, purple. Like, it makes no difference to me. And I think there's a lot of people out there that would agree with me. They just want to be cool and share knowledge and have understanding, And how do we have to? we have to get to a point where we can share that knowledge without fear, I suppose.
And a big part of that's trust.
That's true, absolutely, yeah.
Need to trust. It's it's becoming so apparent to me that we are losing a huge amount of trust in our society. How many people know their neighbours anymore?
That's right, yeah. Well, we've lost community, we've lost tribe, and I think these sites that we're talking about and these sites that we're drawn to, a lot of them were specifically designed to bring people together. And I think that's part of why we're actually drawn to them, because they were designed that way. That's the reason they exist, is to bring people together and give them a sense of community and tribe.
Yep.
And if we, as I say, the modern society that we exist in now doesn't feed our soul. However, bouncing out of bed at 5 o'clock this morning, I got up with a spring in my step because I knew we were coming here. And we will leave here and we will be refreshed and we'll be, in a better place than we were when we came here. And that's. I think that's the thing we're talking about, and that's the thing we need to begin to try and understand, is that there's knowledge is power. However, it's nothing if it isn't shared. And
nothing gets shared without trust.
That's right. And look, the other issue is, and it's a very legitimate issue, is that people are right not to trust, especially with knowledge about these ancient sites here. Because history suggests is that someone comes through and knocks them over. For whatever reason. Is it, and we're getting a bit conspiracy minded here, but is it because they're, like we said before, they're trying to eliminate the past because it doesn't suit their narrative? I don't know.
Yeah, who's feeling threatened by the possible revelations from sites like this?
Well, I think if they keep it, and this is the thing. This is one of the things that I've noticed, is that what modern society, I believe, is attempting to do is divide us. And continue to divide us and divide us and divide us and divide us and divide us. Because when we get divided, we feel alone. When we feel alone, we get scared. When we get scared, we don't share. We don't go out. You know what I mean? That's a vulnerable place to be. And we don't have to bow down to any of these governments or global corporations, because there's millions and millions and billions, literally billions, more of us than there is of them.
We built them.
Exactly.
So if we had the power to build them, we've got the power to remove them.
But unfortunately, they feed into our fear, and they feed into everything that makes us feel vulnerable and alone.
But they make us feel comfortable, and comfort is why people are happy to be in this situation.
That's right.
It's like, don't rock the boat. I'm comfortable like this. I don't have to go back out hunting and scavenging for food. I can go just ignorantly drive down to the shop and find something that's wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
And eat it.
Yeah.
Without a second thought about where it's come from.
Well, comfort in its own way is the enemy. Because we can't. We had to come. We had to trudge through some bush to get to here this morning, and that was part of the fun.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So that the reward was to get here from a different direction through a little bit of adversity.
We were sitting quietly before, and we saw a fox. Passed not far away from our position, and the idea just sort of come to me then. People really love and embrace what's wild. So if you see, people pay hundreds of dollars to go out on a boat and see wild whales.
Yeah.
They pay to go on expeditions to see wild animals all over the world.
Yeah.
And people love that wildness, but there's nothing comfortable about living in the wild.
No.
It's one of those things. Living in the wild it's a daily battle for those animals.
Yes.
You know, very few of them get to peacefully lie down in a den and go to sleep and they've passed on.
Yeah.
Very few animals get to do that.
No.
It's quite a violent existence. So, on one hand, we are excited by the idea of what's wild, but on the other side, we want to not embrace completely what that entails.
That's right. Because we get, we still live in caves, mate. They're just a bit flasher.
That's exactly right.
You know what I mean? They're just a bit flasher. You know, they just got air conditioning instead of. But do you think so? There's a growing movement of trying to truly understand the past and reconnect to the I suppose the animalistic nature of who we are and where we've come from. Do you think that because we're bereft of, I'm not going to say spirituality, but bereft of things that actually satisfy us at a soul level, and I think part of that's what's driven us here. You know what I mean? We're searching, we're seeking,
and like for me personally, feeling enlightened or enriched spiritually isn't about going to a particular, one building on a Sunday and confessing your sins to somebody. To me, my spirituality is right here in the bush. It's the trees, it's the breeze, it's the birds, it's the dirt, it's the smells. That's cleansing to me.
I mean, that's a pretty common thing too. When people go, I need to go clear my head, they'll usually go to the bush or go to the park at least. Down the park they got at least fresh air and
go back to
trees.
nature.
Mate, you see green grass, and what do you want to do? You just want to roll in it.
No one says they want to go fresh air and they go in the city.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
I mean, it's canned humans almost to a point. These major cities. As I say, it's been an interesting experiment, and obviously it's worked to a point. However, I think we all understand at some point we need to, and the fact that I don't think it's not like it's not a surprise to anyone that we don't understand stuff anymore. I don't think, you know what I mean. I think the veil's been lifted a lot. I think the internet has lifted the veil on a lot of bullshit, and the fact that these sites keep coming up all over the planet. They're not just being acknowledged or discovered in Australia. They're found all over the planet all the time. It's like, well, how many dots do we need to join together before it's like, well, hang on a minute, we're from a different. Our history is not the history that we're taught in school. You know what I mean? It's not.
Australia, as we know it, it hasn't been like that forever.
No, definitely not.
It's changed. It's oceans have receded, oceans have grown, forests have grown, forests have disappeared.
Yeah.
It's we cannot look at the past through the present kaleidoscope.
No. We were talking yesterday about the inland sea. I mean, I don't know how long ago that existed, or how long ago they think it existed. And the other issue is that we can't date stone, so we got no idea. And even some of the dating techniques they are using now aren't very accurate. Digging into them, it's all a lot of it.
There's a lot of conjecture.
There's a lot of conjecture, and there's a lot of assumption at some points that are made. So even the dates that we do have that we seem to see as concrete,
it's interpretive to our science.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and it's not exactly. It's not as accurate as we think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, boys, bit of Gympie dreaming. I think that's going to be the name of this one.
Part 1.
Part 1. We're going to do some more investigation, some more research. However, we wanted to come up here and just share our thoughts and
Boots on the ground was essential for this.
absolutely, yeah. Well, we couldn't. I think our mind was too blown away last night to try and put some concrete thoughts together. You know, so. As it's your first time, Macca, final thoughts, mate?
Pretty much as we discussed, like there's a lot more to learn, and it's going to be impossible. It's impossible for a lifetime to get all the information, isn't it?
Mm.
But yeah, definitely a chapter one. Definitely a chapter one.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's more exploration to be done, more knowledge to gain, more trust to be earned, I suppose, mate, is something, you know. Matty, final thoughts, mate?
Look, I just, appreciate the opportunities that we've been given to access the places that we've accessed, to talk to the people that we've spoken to, and who've so openly shared what they can discuss. It's going to take time, but it's it might not be in our lifetime, but if we can be part of the understanding of the future, then it's worthwhile.
Well, I think, mate, maybe as a final thought along those lines is that a man who plants a seed knowing he won't sit under the tree is truly wise. And maybe this is what maybe it's about searching and gaining as much knowledge as we can. However, it's about getting it out there. Maybe not for us, maybe for the generation after us and the generation after that. Because the reality is that as the years pass and the knowledge will slip away.
Yep.
And we have the ability these days, through exactly what we're doing right now, to at least preserve the knowledge in some form forever.
Yep.
And that knowledge needs to be shared.
Yep. All
right, boys. Well, thank you very much. Awesome trip.
Thanks for the experience.
No worries. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah, as you say, chapter 1. Good on you guys. Well, obviously, probably by the time you post this, you would check the Instagram page. I've taken a heap of photos. Some of the stuff's pretty mind-blowing. Let us know what you think, and thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. Good on you, boys. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Riff.
Cheers.
We'll talk soon, guys. Thank you. Woody, welcome back, mate. How you going?
Yeah, good, Triff. Good to be back, mate.
Mate, I just thought I'd give you a quick ring because this is a reflection on the Gympie Pyramid podcast that we recorded on top of the Gympie Pyramid, didn't we, mate?
Yeah, mate, nearly 2 weeks ago. Jeez, that time's flown.
It has flown, mate. It has flown. I just wanted to, just because obviously the importance of this podcast for myself, for unlocking the code, and for yourself as well, I just wanted to do a quick reflection, 12 days or so later, about our thoughts and, what we've thought and talked about since and how we're feeling. And I suppose for me personally, it's dominated my thought processes a fair bit since then, and definitely want to help as much as I can to try and preserve it and, study it more once it's been preserved. I think it deserves proper study and, and in-depth look, and obviously hearing the stories from the Gympie people is also very important as well. So,
yeah, for sure. So, and I think the site certainly deserves more than the chicken scratch that it got when it got picked over with the archaeological survey, when they weren't even looking for certain things, so they completely dismissed what evidence might have been there at the time.
Yeah, that's the archaeo survey which we got a hold of, and you sent me. And look, it's like 46 pages of big words and conjecture and no real proof either way. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing. If you actually read it and read it thoroughly, it's as I say, it's big words and conjecture. It's not really anything else.
There's nothing conclusive at all, and there's definitely nothing in it that can completely eliminate the site either. all they're basing their findings on is the lack of physical evidence. As far as people, there's still a lot of anecdotal evidence, but they're dismissing it straight away because there were diaries that had the evidence, but the houses mysteriously had been burnt down. So,
yeah, that's right. That is true. Yeah.
So it's quite frustrating that we can see these things and they're straight away completely dismissing even the idea. They're not even entertaining the idea of the possibility.
Well, the other thing is too that's come out since we sort of read the report and talking to the Gympie people. They said that the original Archeo one was actually focused on Polynesian or Egyptian influence to the site. So it wasn't even actually an indigenous study. You know what I mean? The original one.
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's very strange how it was undertaken, and if you go to the site, for me, the idea, the term pyramid that's used in the site of Jaku Kundu, it's more a familial term of pyramid. So from the bottom, you do have that steep slope, and it kind of resembles a pyramid. But you go on, there's no way at all that it's a pyramid. It's partially natural terrain. There's a ridge that runs down the back of it. It's not a pyramid. It's just, I think the term pyramid is used as a familial term rather than an actual description of the site.
And I think the thing is, if you use your imagination a little bit and put the polygonal masonry and look, terrace isn't the word, but the terraces that step up, and I think that the walls would have got shorter as it got to the peak, mainly because of the land profile and nothing else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
From the bottom, it would have the look of a pyramid. You know.
No, absolutely. From that front side, where we come up from the bottom, as I said, it's a familial term, as in like that's what's familiar to the person that is describing it. Yeah. It's not an actual physical description of the site.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. No. Yeah. No, I can see how it would be described as such. However,
absolutely.
That's not what it is at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose I know we did sort of touch on it a little bit in the podcast. However, sort of, as you say, nearly 2 weeks on, I think about the energy of the site, and I think about how I was feeling while I was there. It was a very and I think you can hear it in the podcast, we're very subdued, I suppose. We're very is reverent a word? I don't know, you know what I mean? I think is that
the word that comes to my mind is solemn about it.
Yes.
We appreciate and understand that there's something far greater than us that's present there.
And I think I think the time thing, I think that's an interesting thing to point out, is that the second morning when we went up there, we were there for like 4.5 hours or something. You would not have said that was how long we were there for. You know what I mean? Like it really.
It was ridiculous how quickly that time went. From when we arrived to when we left, it felt more like 1 to 2.
Yeah.
But definitely nowhere near that. That 4+ hours.
Yeah, because we checked our watches. Because that was the other thing too. If you think about it, we had no other real focus apart from really poring over and exploring the site. With total respect. Trying to be as gentle and as non-invasive as we could. However, I didn't look at my watch once. You know what I mean? I think we're just very focused on trying to soak in everything about what was going on there.
Yeah, the three of us were wearing watches, and it's for all three of us to go, wow, where's that time gone? That's saying something.
Yeah, I think it's just a very interesting place. And I think you might have hit the nail on the head when you said that there's something greater than us going on there. I think, and you're right. It deserves I can see it being fully tidied. You know what I mean? All the get in there with some chainsaws and cut down some of those trees and really
as restored possible would be incredible.
Yeah. And I think it'd provide a completely different perspective on the site too if that was done. If the opportunity arose to do that, where you could actually really see and understand the lay of the land and how it sits and where it goes.
Yeah, referring back to the report that was done by the archaeologists, they try and dismiss it as agricultural terraces. The whole point of agricultural terraces in farming land is to actually slow water down and hold water there to irrigate the crop that's there. This site is far too sloped to be an agricultural terrace.
Yes.
And it's far too...
and the slope increases as the high, the closer you get to the top. It sort of ramps up, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the topography of it is it ramps right up.
I think and a lot of that stuff. To me, it can be dismissed pretty much straight away. Like I don't even.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
Much effort to go into growing a few grapes. There's not enough of a site there that having that sort of a terrace would be enough to do anything with.
Well, I suppose I mean, if you're talking about it practically, the yield you would get on such a thing would almost be insignificant. It wouldn't be worth the effort.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
If you think about the amount of stones you'd have to move just to create the terraces to plant you know what I mean? Like the effort's not worth the reward.
No, that's right. There seems to be a lot of hard work that, if you listen to the Archaeo report, there's a lot of hard work that's gone in to, for little yields.
Yeah. You're not going to be making many bottles of wine out of the grapes you grow on there, mate.
I don't think you'd get one full bottle of wine out of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
The amount of grapes that it takes to get a bottle of wine, I don't think you'd get one bottle. You'd be lucky to get one bottle.
Yeah. And look, I think it's,
So, and then the other thing is that the area doesn't get enough rainfall to continue irrigation. It just doesn't make sense as an agricultural site.
And there's no water source on the back of the ridge anyway. You know what I mean? It's not like there's a lake behind it or anything that could run.
No, they can't. They can't channel anything down into it.
No.
There's far too much fall in the topography of the site. That doesn't make sense.
And look, I think one of the grander issues that I think we've come across and spoken a lot more about since we went up there is the systematic destruction and misinformation about a lot of these sites, mate. Because I think we've stumbled across two major ones, obviously being the Australian Stonehenge or the survey documents of that, and now the Gympie Pyramid. However, there is or was or could be heaps more that has been hidden from the record,
Yeah, for sure. Someone somewhere has the piece of evidence, a piece of the jigsaw puzzle that's required to take us to the next level.
Yeah. And
it's only a matter of time.
That's true. And I think it's I mean, I'm in this one for the long haul. I think we both are, mate. We're going to do what we can to help the Gympie people preserve the site in order to just understand it better. I think
I'm really concerned about that. The Transport and Main Roads have, they've pretty much written a date in the calendar when the bulldozers are coming.
Yeah.
And going back to that report, their suggestion is, dig away. And if you happen to come across something of cultural significance, then
we'll stop then. Yeah,
let's stop, and there's going to be no excavation within 20 metres. That to me, that's shutting the gate after the horse has bolted.
That's true. Yeah.
It needs to be completely and thoroughly investigated, and as open-minded as possible. Not closed-minded. You know, there can't be any bias. It's got to be completely neutral, and just start from the ground up.
Yeah, and give it the respect and due diligence that it deserves.
Absolutely.
I suppose to finish, mate, I think we should have a bit of a chat about the because obviously the song lines are the ley lines that carry energy across the globe. And look, there's been plenty of studies that have proven that there is energy at these sources and these cross points, and there is a certain type of energy associated with ley lines. And we found a map of Australia, and there's actually two pretty serious intersections, not only at Gympie, however, also at Mullumbimby, where the Stonehenge was said to be.
Yeah, that's quite exciting to unveil that map. I'd like to really uncover that more and see how deep we can get into that ley line. And then there's up in the Gulf of Carpentaria. There's a big intersection of mass lines, and I'd love to know. You know, because there was land bridge back up through there back in the day.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's also one too. There's also one too. Looks like between Victoria, South Australia, and New South Wales, which is still on the land at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
Which would be very, you know,
very remote land. That is.
It is very remote. I wonder what's there. You know what I mean? It'd be interesting to, you know. I think, mate, if we both had the resources, we know what we do for the rest of our time. We'd be searching for this stuff.
We're in trouble if we ever win the lottery.
Oh, we're not in trouble. We're just we're buying some a couple of Forbies and some buggies and some drones and mountain bikes, and we're out of here, mate. That's what's going on.
The modern day Indiana Jones.
yeah. You know, and I think that is part of this too, mate. It's the excitement of it, and it's excitement mixed with sadness for me, because it's like, what have we missed? You know what I mean? I think it's becoming quite clear to me that we're missing a big part of the story, and Australia has a lot to do with that, and it was wantonly destroyed, unfortunately.
Which is it's a shame. And look, at the end of the day, we can't take that back. We've got to culturally stand up and go, right, well, that's happened.
Yeah.
Let's ensure that this doesn't repeat itself. Yeah,
exactly. And I think,
and not just for Indigenous Australians' sake, but also as Australians, Australians in general.
Yeah.
As a nation, we need to take ownership of what's actually happening on the land.
Absolutely. And a lot of
a
lot of people are proud Australians, and we must embrace and understand all parts of our heritage and step away from the, there's no other way to say it, the racism and the bullshit that's come before. Because at the end of the day, we're all people. We all love being Australian, so we need to understand Australia's story, and I think the more we can start to try and work together as the people of Australia, and understanding the true story and being able to share it and understand it, so we can help ourselves move forward and plug in a few holes in the global picture as well, I think is very interesting.
Yeah. I mean, you look at how far we've come in the last few hundred years from societies that didn't even recognise or couldn't even comprehend the existence of dinosaurs to where we are now. That's all in the space of a few hundred years. What we've learned at that time, and we're just learning more and more every year, every decade as we go. The technology is getting better.
And it's all, and that's revealing more. You know what I mean? Like it's.
There's a million cold cases out there just waiting to be uncovered.
And I think Australia does have a big role to play, and hopefully out there somewhere, some of these sites are undisturbed. I mean, that is one of the beautiful things about Australia, is it's so fucking big that there's no way, apart from maybe our Indigenous brothers and sisters, that everybody's walked every foot of this land. You know, there's so many valleys and,
Yeah.
you know, all sorts of stuff. There's a lot out there to explore and see, you know.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we are a big land, and people just need to stop for a second, and just because we haven't fully, completely uncovered something yet doesn't mean it hasn't happened before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, I've just been looking into the Gosford glyphs.
Yes.
You know, there's stories. There's been etched into rock down between Sydney and Newcastle, hieroglyphics into the rock, and the story goes it's been translated from Egyptologists that an Egyptian lord died there around 4,600 years ago.
Yeah, after he was bit by a snake, or was it something like that?
Bit by a snake, yeah, he died there and must be interred there somewhere. So, you know, it's just so many secrets that are still tucked away that it's only a matter of time, you know, as the jigsaw puzzle comes together.
Absolutely, you know, and it's quite easy to see that if they were aiming for Gympie or Mullumbimby and the wind blew them down the coastline a little bit and they got stuck in a hill, and you know what I mean, like there's a very simple explanation as to how and why that could have happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah, pure exploration.
No, yeah, absolutely.
They might have started somewhere and started circumnavigating. Like I've heard stories that there's an actual pyramid up near Darwin.
Yes, I have. There. Look, I mean, Arnhem Land's a whole nother story, mate. You know what I mean? There's.
So who's to say they haven't just kept following coastlines around and around to, and then just kept exploring to see what they could find.
And I think that's the thing about this, mate, is that it's opened a million different doors, given us thousands more questions than answers. You know what I mean?
So many more questions than answers.
But that's the fun part, mate. You know, that's the fun part of it.
Part of it.
You know, and well, look, mate. I think this has been a good little bookend to chapter 1 of the Gympie Pyramid, and obviously we'll keep everyone updated to our explorations and anything that happens moving forward. I think maybe we need to dedicate a podcast to the ley lines. I think maybe that needs a bit of its own digging. You know what I mean? I think that could be an interesting one that will assist in putting this stuff together. You know, but there's so much stuff, mate. This is going to be some never-ending content. You know, as opportunities open up and as exploration happens when it comes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just exciting where it's all leading, and it's that's why we're unlocking the code, man.
Spot on, mate. I couldn't have put it better myself. Well, mate, thanks for ringing in tonight. I appreciate your time, and yeah, man, I'm looking forward to the response we get from this, and it's exciting times, mate. And you know, and obviously, without doubt, just appreciation and the privilege of being allowed to share the things that we saw and our thoughts on it. You know, the Gympie people allowing us to do that. That's very important, and we can't obviously look past that at all. You know.
Yeah, absolutely, and you know, it's getting to the point where I'd love to see some of our fellow coders out there across the world actually, you know, jumping on sites and looking into the stuff that we're looking into as well. Because, you know, if we could get an extra 100 set of eyes looking at different sites and sending in, you know, any little tidbits or leads that they can find, you know, that can really speed up the process. So and really get this community growing. Absolutely,
mate. And look, that you know, you put it out there, and you know, I second that as well. You know, let's this is a growing community, and you know, we need to come together. And as you say, the more eyes, the more people looking at it, the better off we'll be. So
that's it. You know, you and I, we're two blokes that, you know, we've got families and work full time. You know, it's not like we can dedicate our full time to these. It's just a hobby of ours and an interest that we look into whenever we can. So if anyone else feels like they want to, you know, get involved and start uncovering things, for sure, you know, send it in, let us know, and be part of the project.
Yeah, and look, obviously you can message me on Instagram or the unlockingthecode9@gmail.com. Send us an email with pics or any of that sort of links, or DM me through Instagram is probably the best way to do it. Unlocking the code on Instagram as well. So, yeah, man, looking forward to the next part of this adventure. And as I say, nice book into chapter 1.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks very much, mate. Yeah, we'll talk soon anyway, bud.
Right, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Today I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in the sun. And I hope my world don't crash in over me, just like it did yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was more than 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear those bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare. And I've done nothing wrong to anyone. Then I just want to be better, better than who I am, better than who I am, better than who I am, better than who I am. Moonlit river flows by gently, like an ocean made from the earth. It is healing all of my inner bleeding, even though it's only pictures in my mind. And I hope my world don't crash in over me, just like it did yesterday. I'm pretty sure the last mirror that I cracked was more than 7 years ago. And I don't want to wear these bullet holes no more. I want to kill my nightmare. Don't stick those pins in the dog that looks like me. I'm burning up. 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 I'm burning. Hey, I sat in a field of paper daisies. The gentle breeze made the world wave to me. The day has come with a gold ring wrapped around it. I think I might just bathe in